video, we are going to be showing you the cutest little cheetah nail art design. It is a realistic cheetah, which in general, I love making these realistic animals. I will put links to all the past ones in the description box below, so if you've missed any of them, definitely look at that list to see what's there and check them out. Otherwise, I hope you love this video as much as I do, and I will see you all next time. Bye!
So we're going to begin this design, as I have with most of my realistic animals, just by creating a nice, soft, sort of marbled effect in the background. Really not too specific, gently marbling the colors together, just so that it looks like a soft focused background as if you were to take a photograph. Then I'm going to encapsulate it with a layer of clear acrylic to make sure it's nice and strong. And then after that's done, we can file it into shape. This part of the design, if you didn't want to do anything at all in the background and leave it either just a solid color or a cover pink or something, nobody would probably ever notice, because the realistic animal, whichever animal you choose to do, is so interesting and there's so much going on that nobody's going to pay any attention to the background. And for this particular one, all of the marble effect actually ended up underneath the cheetah and you couldn't see it anyway. But I do like to do that regardless for my videos like this, just so that if you're doing it as part of a set and you're doing a cheetah on one nail and the rest of them just kind of that smooth background, that you would have a base reference as to what might look good with it on the other nails. For our cheetah, we're going to start out with a creamy color acrylic. It's off-white. It's not as far as I would say to go as like a tan, but it's like a buff color. We're going to do our cheetah's head shape. We're going to add in the cheetah's snout. Cheetahs have a very different face shape from a lot of other big cats and domestic cats. Any cat, they have just a little bit more of a dog-like face. And they also have kind of a grumpy face. When I was sculpting this one, I just started laughing all of a sudden, and my mother was close by and she just looked at me. She's like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I just was looking at my cheetah reference photos, and the only thing I could think of is how grumpy they look. They all look very perturbed, like somebody is, I don't know, biting their tail or something. Anywho, completely off topic. We're going to just keep adding details to our cheetah, different planes of their face, different levels. The more you add, the more detail this is, the more detail it has, the more realistic it is. And so if you want it to be a little more simple, obviously that's fine. Whatever way it works for you, go for it. If you want it to be super detailed and absolutely crazy, you could sculpt in individual strands of hair all the way. If you really wanted to, if you wanted to add more detail or tufts of hair. If you want it to be somewhere in like a happy medium, find whatever works for you. And so as you're doing this and you're adding layers, keep looking at your reference photos to figure out, what spots need a little bit of something, and then go from there. If you're looking at it and you're like, man, this looks really good, then you can leave it as it is. However, at whatever stage you're satisfied with it, stop. Because a lot of times if you keep going, you'll end up going too far and you might regret something that you just should have left it a little bit more simple sometimes. I'm going to add a bit of white acrylic on our cheetah's chest, as well as just a hint on the outside of the cheeks. That little bit on the outside of the cheeks does not get picked up very well on the camera, but it does add a bit of brightness that is more visible in person. With a slightly sparkly shade of brown, I'm going to be adding in my cheetah's eyes. I love to use a sparkly color for anybody's eyeballs, whether it's animal or human or alien or anything else, just because it makes them look a little bit more alive. And even though real live creatures don't have glitter particles in their eyeball, it still just makes things look a little bit more happy, a little more lively. I'm going to take and add my cheetah's eyelids, also with a little bit of non-sparkly brown. As you saw, I just added a little splotch to start some shading just around the fur. I'll be adding quite a bit more of that in a second, but that first little splotch sort of just got me going. It's one of those things where I sometimes will be sculpting something and I'll jump around and I'll do a little bit of something and then I'll come back to it later. That is a perfectly acceptable method. The reason I did that here is because I decided to add a little bit more acrylic underneath the cheetah's eyes, and I needed to do that before adding that darker shading to everything. I'm going to add a little bit of white under the eyes to brighten up that area. And now that we have most of that done, a little more white on the nose, you can go back through and do most of your shading. So with a slightly more gray tone brown, so it's not going to be a really rich, warm, reddish brown, more of that more neutral color, we're going to be adding all of our depth to our cheetah's face. So we're going to be doing a little bit in the ears, around the perimeter of the face. And then you can also go through and kind of start working in some of the cheetah's spots if you want to. You can do all of that with acrylic paint if you would prefer, but if you want to do just a little hint of that now with your acrylic, you certainly can. To do that, the best way to do it is to have a bead of acrylic on your brush and just sort of tap it. And it won't be very precise spots, but it'll kind of give you a good start. With some black acrylic, I'm going to be doing some shading on my cheetah's lips and add a little more acrylic to the one eyeball, or eyelid rather. I'm going to add the actual nose with black acrylic. If you are somebody, you know, if you don't want to use straight up black acrylic for one of 100 reasons, a dark brown would also work. Personally, I find black acrylic to be more difficult than any other color to work with, and if you find that as well, you may just choose to not use it. Same thing with these little tear duct lines. If you just are like, ugh, black acrylic, really, do we have to? No, you don't have to. That can be done with acrylic paint instead of your liquid and powder system. However it works for you. The one thing that is nice about using the acrylic, the liquid and powder acrylic, is that you have a chance to move it around a little bit depending on your brand. I find it actually is a little easier to get some of those symmetrical lines in with the acrylic, but again, whatever works better for you. Now with some brown paint, I'm going to add in my spots. I didn't do any of them with acrylic. If you wanted to, obviously that's, you know, your choice, go for it. If you didn't, acrylic paint is a wonderful choice as well. So we're just going to go through and add all of our spots, add all of our details in general. So you're going to have a lot more details to add into your cheetah, especially around the eyes and just in like the fur pattern. But around the eyes, I would highly recommend outlining them in general. A lot of times cats of any variety, of any size, have an outlined eyeliner type of a look. Once you have that done, you have the black paint out already, you can go through and add some black details on your cheetah, some hairlines in the ears. You can go through and you can do some darkness, some more darkening around the spots. I initially did my spots with a medium shade of brown. If there's any of them that you want to be a little bit darker, go through and just add a little bit of black to them. I'm going to be highlighting our cheetah's eyes with a lighter shade of brown. Just add a little bit of gold in them as well if you want to. Again, we want our eyes to look nice and sparkly. Don't forget the cheetah's pupil. Add some white highlights here and there wherever you feel like it's necessary. Around the eyes, a little dot in the eyes, a little bit on the cheeks, and possibly if you want to, a little bit on the chin and chest. Just a little bit, just to bring anything out that you need to. And then after you have all of those little lines done, you're pretty much getting close to the end. Just keep going through and adding anything else you might feel like you want to. If you want to paint in whiskers, go for it. Ear hair is always fun. But once you're happy with it, go ahead and apply some gel sealer over the background. And once that's done, cure it and apply some matte top coat over your 3D cheetah, and that is it. I have so many previously created extreme 3D realistic animals, and I can put a link to all of them in the description box below. If you're new to the series, I highly recommend you start with the giraffe because that one is one of my favorites, and it is the first one I did as part of this. I don't want to call it a series exactly, but you know, this collection of extreme 3D animals. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!